Hi, everyone, and welcome to our IIRSM Ireland Branch webinar, Changing Driver Behaviour. My name is David Lisser. I'm the branch vice chair, and I'm incredibly delighted to introduce today's guest speaker, Fabian Murphy. Now, Fabian is a risk management surveyor, including motor and fleet at Aviva, and has a wealth of experience in risk management. So without further ado, Fabian, I'll hand the floor over to you.
Thank you, David. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Fabian Murphy. I've been with Aviva for over 24 years. I was a safety officer before joining Hibernian way back in the day and things like that. So where have I come from? I've come from a lot of advice and discussions with clients that manage fleet and things like that. Understanding where incidents take place, so my webinar, totally my opinions. There's a load of way to change driver behavior and things like that. But the whole idea is to initiate ideas, solutions and things like that, and to kind of motivate everybody, things like that, just to change their small little things. No, I'm scared. But there we go. It works. It works. Thank God. The introduction, basically, we're going to talk today about why do we need to change driver behaviour? What are the benefits? What are the main causes of accidents? What can we do? So if we fall asleep for the first three elements, that's okay. What you can do is the main slide that I would like you to try and focus on. And finally, then I'm just giving on some useful resources where I pop in and out of quite regularly to understand and see what's happening out in the market, what's happening with advice and guidance and things like that. But why is road safety so important? Now, we've got a lovely graph here. You can clearly see the numbers in excess of over 650 at one stage and things like that. And the sad part about this figure is these are the road fatal accidents for Ireland since 1969. That's the best part of 55 odd years and things like that. And looking at all the changes that have come in, all the regulatory changes and things like that, you've got the breathalyzer coming in with a limit of 125 milligrams per litre. I know there was jokes or ads there before about, not more than 4 pints and all that. It probably was true. Very hard to search YouTube and all those, but it nearly was at that mad level, things like that. It's a long way different from now, Seat belts for front seat passengers, 1979. Now, I can remember they had to be fitted to cars in 1972 and 1979. They were fitted in the front, and I think there was fitted in the back. It wasn't mandatory till well into the 1980s, I think, Euro NCAP came in 1997. So that's been 25 odd years, that Euro NCAP, and the engineering of the vehicles have changed a lot. You can clearly see that the graph is beginning to drop dramatically now, with penalty points coming in 2002. And then there was a lower alcohol level in 2011 from 80 milligrams to 50 milligrams. Now, the interesting thing, that's 80 milligrams for car drivers. 50 milligram down to 50, things like that. The standard is actually 20. So if you're driving a commercial vehicle, your standard is 20, not 50, things like that. So if you lose your license or you forgot your license, you will be tested at the 20 milligram limit and things like that. So there's only a default for cars, for car drivers and things like that. Vans are still able to, so you can drive a van under a B license, but you get breathalyzed because it's commercial at the 20 milligram commercial level. Now, the the other things that have changed in the last couple of years since COVID, Euro NCAP started to look at vans in 2021. So if you're selecting or buying new vans, you can look at those vans to see, do they come what used to be in kind of a gold medal awards, something like that. They've gone the default standard method that we all understand with Euro NCAP, which is the 5-star rating, things like that. So they've changed those in the last couple of months. So Euro NCAP for vans, and in 2023 you've had Euro NCAP for HGVs, and they've issued reports there on Iveco, Mercedes, DAF, Scania. Those are ones now that pop to mind and things like that, you know. And they look at not just 5-star, they also look at things like City Safe and Vision Safe and things like that. But the target for the end of the decade under Vision Zero for Europe, for Ireland, this was a publication that you'll see it with the RSA. They'll all be wearing Vision Zero on it and things like that. But that publication, they wanted a target by the end of this decade of less than 72. Now, 72 that would be a fantastic achievement, but the end of the decade is only 4.5 years away. The tragic thing is year to date, the numbers are 81 year to date. It's not yet half the year and we're at 81. It's the same standard. We're not any worse or any better than last year. The sad part about it is that by the end of February this year, we were 10 ahead. We had 10 less fatalities, but we seem to have caught up in the last couple of months in road fatalities, and I think we all need to change our behaviour. Why do we change our driver behaviour? Can we learn from fatal accidents? You know, hopefully we won't be able to learn from our own one. The interesting thing about the graph, the Ireland graph, and looking at the European data that I can attain, this is one from the UK. There's also a similar one I've seen for Australia, and there's a roughly similar profile in the numbers of fatalities and how they're going. But what we're seeing is there's kind of a plateau effect where there's no longer an improvement. So it seems to be standard across all the areas and things like that we're not doing enough, you know. So we really must. Are we waiting for the computer and AI controlled cars to be able to improve our driving? But we're not improving in the last 10, 15 years anyway. This slide is, well, you know, one way to look at driving and safer driving and things like that. Well, one way to motivate yourself would be look at the money, things like that. If you're a good driver, you'll be spending less on fuel. A huge saving on fuel there, straight up. By keeping to the speed limit, you're looking at a saving there of about maybe 10-15%. You'll have less damage to your tires. Your servicing will be less aggressive. Will be so you'll be able to save a lot on servicing. Your insurance costs will be down, but you know that's not going to be a big impact when you look at the price of fuel, the price of maintenance and things like that. You know, insurance costs, while it appears on the graph to be quite a lot, it isn't in proportion for the overall vehicle if you look at depreciation and things like that. And the last slide then is damage and things like that. Of course, you're going to, if you're a safe driver, you're going to have very much less damage. Safer drivers are economical, they're efficient, they have less servicing and repairs, they have less damage, and they have less accidents. And the future probably is more telematics and being attractive for insurance companies and things like that. So if you've got a good record, a good claims record, really, so if there's no claims, well then that'll be attractive for insurance companies. The main causes of accidents are the fatal five. And I've done a lot of looking and reading and things like that, and it comes back to those basic ones. The fatal five: speeding, seatbelts, fatigue, drinking drugs, driver distractions, and mobile phones. And I'll try and go through these little points as to why these are important. The first one is speeding. You're bringing more energy to an incident. It's the single biggest contributing factor in all fatalities. If you get struck by, and this is where the campaign for reducing your speeds in villages and towns down to 30 kilometers an hour or 20 miles an hour in the UK. What you're looking at there is that if there's a collision with a pedestrian or a vulnerable road user, is what the way they term these people, they're less likely to be fatally injured. They'll be injured, but you're less likely to be fatally injured. And that is the main driving force, will not to try and kill them and things like that. So slowing down is going to be a good way to start it off. And you have to learn how to drive at 30. What used to be 50 kilometers an hour. There was an old saying in driving, which was third for 30, as in 30 miles an hour. So you put the car into third gear, things like that, and it was easy. It's going to be a little bit more difficult now when you've got modern cars, because they're all automatic nearly, because they're going to be hybrid driven and things like that, or electric. So it's going to be hard to kind of select that. But look, there's going to be other ways. So learning to drive the vehicle at 30, you'll be able to understand that. Look, in Ireland, there's 12,500 speeding offences detected every month. There's 3 penalty points, or €160, and really try to learn the 2-second rule. If later on you want to get a look at, I'm not going to open any web pages there on how you could calculate and why safer driving and slow incidents and things like that. There's a link there down the bottom, things like that. It's about 5 or 10 minutes, 5 minutes long, things like that. It's very good kind of summary and things like that. But if you get this copy of the slides, there's a link to it. It's similar to this one, which is all about the speedometer and the paceometer. The paceometer, I suppose, would be the best way to describe it. So this graph really shows that, look, this is for the minutes per 10 miles, right? Let's go back to miles. I know in Ireland we've been in kilometers for the last 20 years. But if we think in old money, it'll take you 10 minutes to do 10 minutes to do 10 miles at 60 miles an hour. But anything faster than that, you're only going to save maybe 1 minute, maybe 2. But once you're already going fast, you're not going to save any money. You're not going to save any time. If I'm driving from Cork to Dublin and I want to save 10 minutes, I have to drive like a lunatic for for nearly 2 hours. So I'm speeding for 2 hours to save 10 minutes. It's madness, things like that. There's a lot there. Have a look at the web link and things like that on YouTube on the paceometer. It's a good way to look at what are you saving. You're not saving anything. Once you are moving, you are not saving anything really in time. So that's speed. The next one, the fatal five, are seatbelts. Historically, 36% of fatal injured were not wearing their seatbelt. And you'll be there thinking, yeah, that was historically. Well, do you know what? The most recent data, it's still roughly about 30 to 35%. In 2022, there was 14 people confirmed. That was the most recent data that I could gather. This is just for Ireland, things like that. 18% confirmed were not wearing seatbelts. Now they will do further analysis later on. 52 years of seatbelt use in Ireland since the 1st of June 71. Front seats in 1990. Front seats in cars Oh, yeah, that was 1971. In 1992, rear seat belts. And it was only 2007 for HGVs, which is madness and things like that. Um, but seat belts are there for not just cars and vans and trucks. They're there on tractors and land plant and things like that. So, keep within the seat and things like that, wear the belts and things like that. It is important. Of course, there's 3 penalty points and things like that. But you don't just think of yourself. You have to think of the passengers around in the back seat or your load, securing your load. So pictures of securing your load in your vehicle, it might help. And there's there's great guidance there on international guidance on road safety, on securing plant and equipment and materials on vehicles. From the UK, actually, there's similar data on, well, who are the people that died that were wearing safety belts. Um, all occupants, about 25%, were not wearing safety belts. Females were more compliant, males less so. And what's interesting is that, okay, during daylight, the standards is kind of maybe 1 in 5. It's 1 in 5 people are not wearing their safety belt in this day and age. So it doesn't take a genius to be able to look and see people driving by. They click the seat belt in, and then sit on the seat. That's all wrong. Things like that. So start off with, well, correcting them and things like that, or changing your behavior if you can. Occupants traveling in the evening time, nearly 40%, definitely over a third. So at the time when you're most likely not to be able to see people because it's going to be dull and dark and things like that, or sun is setting and somebody's in your eyes and things like that. And these are people that are the ones that are not going to wear a safety belt. That's a shame. The next one, right? So of the fatal 5, we've done speeding, we've done seatbelts. Fatigue is unreal. I'm going to be using a lot of kind of large words and trying to, is it madness? Of course it's madness and things like that, but everybody sleeps. Not everybody drinks and drives, not everybody speeds, but everybody will fall asleep. So we have to be able to acknowledge that within ourselves and things like that. They reckon about 10-20% of all traffic collisions. So it's not fatal accidents. Very hard to understand whether somebody is asleep or not, whether this happened and things like that. But look, the only solution is stop, take a bit of a rest, things like that. Sip some caffeinated drink, get 15 to 20 minutes rest and things like that. That will give you enough to get home, things like that. Try to recognize that within yourself. Where do you feel tired? And the interesting thing, these are the high-risk drivers. Night workers, of course, they've been working all night and they're still fatigued and they're coming home. So they're driving home after a night shift in the morning when it's going to be busy. Lorry drivers, so they try to manage those with tachograph rules. Company car and van drivers, well, we've got working time rules as well, but you have to drive, I think about I think there's the best part of around 5 or 6 hours. There's about 6 hours of driving before you take a break, and really your brain is going to be mush after 5 hours of driving. So it's a very important to stop and take a break. Interesting thing, men aged 18 to 24 suffer fatigue. Maybe it's their sleep pattern, and you can see why it's difficult for young people to get out of bed early in the morning and things like that. Then they become okay. Then you've got kids, and you've got your sleep hygiene wouldn't be particularly great. Now, the men over 50 years of age, I was there thinking when I was 35, that's a load of baloney. Now, what I understood was men over 45. It wasn't until I became 45 I realized, oh, this is actually a thing, you know. So between 2 and 4 in the morning, 2 and 4 in the afternoon, these are killer times and things like that. Skilled manual workers. There's a lot of people out there who are on building sites and things like that. So you're physically going around and you stop, you sit into a car, your body will go into rest mode. That's the way I can understand it anyway, and explain. But look, what I've identified there in the last few groups, that includes nearly an awful lot of people. Oh yes, one little thing. What do I carry in the car? A neck pillow. Vans don't have seats that'll recline that well, but at least if you've got a neck pillow, it'll help your neck from flopping around. You'll sleep more comfortably in a car with one of these if you're resting. So literally throw it in the back of the car, attach it to the back of the headrest, and if you're tired, you'll feel more comfortable in being able to do it. There'll be no excuses for you. Third part, sorry, not the fourth part, which is the fatal five, which are drink and drugs. About 700 people per month are detected driving while intoxicated, and lately it's been more drug driving than drinks, things like that. It's the same penalty points and things like that. The conviction is a fine, mandatory disqualification. Now they all talk about the latest ones in Ireland. They're looking at bringing in alcolocks for cars and vans and buses or something like that. Maybe somebody who has already failed a driving test or failed a breathalyzer test, to get them back out driving again. They might be able to have some sort of an alcolock fitted. But there are commercial vehicles out there, bus companies. I know there's a company in Wexford have it installed in their buses. So it becomes mandatory that for every driver, if they want to start their bus, they're going to have to blow in and blow clear. Interesting thing is it's 50 milligrams. Let's look at just for cars, 50 milligrams of alcohol in the blood in Ireland, and it's 80 in Northern Ireland. It's 50 in Scotland, things like that. So if you're going trans-border, things like that, you'll have to be aware of there's different jurisdictions and different levels. So you might be fine in the south, or you might be fine in the north, and you're coming down, and you go into a work area, hop into a van, drive out, and you get breathalyzed. You've already passed in the car, and you'll fail with the van, things like that, because of the different requirements and things like that. So just have a look at all those things. There's a lot of D-Tech drug companies and things like that that'll provide breathalyzers and things like that. But a lot of it really is, if you don't look well or don't feel well, you shouldn't be driving. The last one that I'm looking at in the Fatal Five, which is distraction and mobile phones. Again, it's estimated 20 to 30% of all collisions, the driver was distracted. It's not just phones. So it could be the children at the back. It could be, why does that keep popping in my head? Because, well, I had children and they'd be taking off their seatbelt. They could be moving around. They could be fighting. They could be getting sick. Either way, they're throwing stuff or something like that. So it was always a distraction. There was lots of ads on the RSA, which is like, don't look back in anger, or that 2-second glance or something like that. So these are important ways. Understand what's a distraction for you. And for mobile phones, the best thing for me was, I became illiterate without my glasses. So it was great when phones came out. You couldn't text, things like that, but I couldn't read the message anyway if I didn't have my glasses. So it's would it kill you to put it away? And that goes for all road users. And it might go for the passenger as well, the driver seat, co-pilot. Really, you want them to be looking out and helping you drive and to observe maybe blind spots or something like that. So you want to try and avoid distractions in it. You're out there for a reason. This in this icon here on this image, we're back to kind of the mobile phone zombies. So a good driver, the challenges that you're going to have when you're driving through a village or a town or the cities and things like that, is you're going to have people that are going to be on their phone with noise cancelling headphones, looking down, and they could walk out in front of you. So the challenge will be to be able to scan the pedestrians who can hear you and who cannot. So there we go. The causes of collisions. So the most detailed data that I got from the Garda Road Investigation Unit and things like that, and they categorized them all, things like that. So the driver failed to look properly, failed to see or failed to look properly. 37%. From our own claims investigators that go out and look at cars, and the general comment was, I don't know what they're doing, but the accidents are happening right in front of them. So these are things that they're going to have to challenge. You're going to have to change your behavior by learning to look, I think. So driver in a hurry, exceeding the speed limit, traveling too fast for the conditions. Sorry, there, my screen is out, was 31%. But distraction, failing to look, failing to see, what are you doing, and distraction and in a hurry. So straight away, focus on those two areas and it'll reduce the cause of a collision. We're not talking about fatalities, just collisions and things like that. So the way around it, this is what the engineers are telling you, what drivers are, where the accidents are happening. So as a result, the engineers come on and they fit ADAS systems in the car. So they've got automatic emergency braking, blind spot warning, lane keep assist, speed sign recognition, seat belt reminders and things like that. It is vital, if you've got that in a car or a vehicle, don't switch them off. Don't bypass them or anything like that. They're there to help. They're not it's not co-pilot or autopilot or anything like that. They're assist systems. Okay, so they're there to help you drive. Best ways to learn how they work, and when they can give false alarms, but usually they are there for a good reason. I'll just move on. Now, changing driver behavior. You could learn from accidents. That's a good way to do it. You could learn from other people's accidents. So try and learn about them, do good investigations if you have that opportunity. In Cork, Aviva had supported Cork County Council they had a virtual reality program where they could literally put on headsets and you'd get children. Sorry, these would be youths that would be 18 to 25, or is it 15, something like that, in secondary school and in third level. So literally you could put on a VR headset and participate in an incident of going down the road. You have the incident. It is immersive, and you're literally sitting in the scene by looking around, and it was a fantastic way to learn of, well, this is a scene that could happen, things like that. It might look, it works. It might scare people, but I think learning from near misses, I think, is probably a way to go. The other way to learn, changing behavior is compliance with the rules. If you don't comply with the rules, you lose your job, you lose your license. So you lose your license, you lose your job. But also you'll see other ads out there. You might lose access to social events, or that they're kind of are they mocking events. But try to understand why the ad is there. The other way is, look, it's going to cost you more money. You're going to get penalty points on your license. There's financial costs then as the penalties increase, you're going to get increased insurance premiums. So that'll change your behavior, hopefully. But learn from near misses. Why do you wait for accidents to learn from that? That's far too late. Accidents are far too infrequent for people to learn from them, but there's an awful lot more near misses. So try and, if you have dash cams or if you've got telematics, try to work on an event that happened. Why did it catch you out? What did you miss before? Let's say there's no collision, but what happened that frightened you, that got you out, that you were lucky. So try and anticipate, try and learn from those near misses. I move down. Learning to look is an important one. This is from Galway. They did there was an analysis done on where do people look in a vehicle and things like that. Again, you're looking at 37% of all collisions, the driver failed to look or failed to see properly. So where are they looking or where are they not looking? Evidently they're looking out the front, but not in very, they're not looking at their left mirror as much, or their right mirror, so you need to learn to scan, put your head in a bobblehead and move around a little bit more. For me, what helps me, I got some help with the Aviva driving school driving manager. I started to do some driving lessons. I'm trying to get roadcraft standard. If you want to learn how to change your driving behavior, well, there's a good start anyway on the skills of driving. But scanning. So when you're driving, scan far, middle, near, and rear. And you repeat that over and over and over again, things like that. And slowly you'll be able to picture what's happening way off in the distance. What way is the road going? What is the conditions? Look at the route, the signs. Is there junctions? Is there hidden junctions? Which way are the telegraph poles going? You'll be able to see which way the road is going, things like that. You'll be able to maybe observe potholes or dips or cyclists or animals or something like that. And you check your mirror a bit more often, things like that. One of the other things that caught me in my driving test is, well, do you know what? A stop sign means stop. You kind of come up to a stop sign and you kind of, oh yeah, there's nothing there. And off you go, you drive through it. Stop sign actually means stop, not yield, not slow down, stop. It's a technical stop. And the way to do that is literally say to yourself, technical stop, and look left and right and then behind, making sure that everything is there. You get 3 penalty points by driving through a stop sign. 3. Now, if we were all getting caught for penalty points on driving through stop signs, there's one that we could change. So we're all the way back to the last slide, kind of section 4, really. What can you do? Things like that. So for me, it's all about the word professional, right? Get professional to help. Be professional and things like that. So it's a play on the word professional in all my things, right? So I'm looking at driver training. So for you to be professional, you need to read the rules of the road. It's a 280-page book, things like that. You can get it in PDF. There's links later on in the document and things like that. If you've got a driver's handbook, the driver's handbook is just on what you do in the event of an accident, maybe efficient driving, lifting and coasting, or how you secure loads and things like that. A vehicle handbook will give you details on, what does this button do? What does that button do? What happens if you have a warning? Where's your spare tire? Do you have a spare tire? Things like that. There's an SOS button in the car. What's that for? That's there, and that's coming into vans and trucks, hopefully soon. So if you have an incident and you collision, the car will detect if the airbags have been activated. If they have, they will ring into the vehicle and they'll ask the driver, do you need assistance? If there's no response, they can actually call the emergency services. And all that is to reduce the fatalities in that first golden hour, to try and keep people alive and things like that. So that is one way to help you. You don't have to have a collision to operate one of those buttons. So like if you're at in a it could be a GA pitch, you could be at any event, any location where somebody is in difficulty, might have a heart attack or something like that. You can press that button and you'll be able to call for assistance to where your car is and things like that. So that's all about getting professional, getting training and things like that, get professional to help, get ADI trainers and things like that. For me, it is reading roadcraft and how you position yourself on the road. How would you learn? What are you seeing? What's behind you that's going to happen in front of you? So it's learning from your mistakes. It's learning and understanding, what are the rules of the road that are mandated out there. So that's the first part of training, getting professional. The second one is maintenance. Only a mechanic can certify your vehicle. You can't get kind of, oh, my brother is great or something like that, or could be somebody else who might be just enjoy it and things like that. But if you're not a qualified person, then you're not looking after your vehicle properly. So check their tires, check the engine, check the glass, check your lights. So get professional to help. You might literally need to walk around the vehicle and look at the inside of the tire. I had a great lesson a couple of years ago when a ball went under the tire, under the car, and it wasn't until I had my head under the vehicle I realized that the inside shoulder of the rear tires were down to the canvas, and the outside was perfect. And I think, how did that happen? So it can happen. So it's just try to be a little bit more professional. So the next one, which is before you start, know your journey, set up your seat, your electronic devices before you move off. So here, help, get professional. So you might need assistance with your load and your passengers and things like that. So if you've got kids that are distracting in the back of your vehicle, well then put the childminder or the partner in there to separate them or entertain them and things like that. So that's really know your journey, set up your what do they call it? Your maps, your communication, things like that, before you begin to move your vehicle and things like that, before you start your vehicle. And the last one, which is probably underestimated, which is enjoy driving. If you don't enjoy driving, you're stressed. You feel incompetent. You mightn't have the vision. You've got challenges within your own ability. If you don't enjoy driving, then you should get a professional to help. So get your partner if they want to take over the driving. You take a taxi or get another driver. So if you're going out for a night, well, get somebody else to do the driving. If you're a little bit worried, if you're a little bit fatigued, the whole idea is get somebody else to do the driving. Those are my solutions. So we're now just into where do I get all my resources and things like that. Well, I've got the managing driving for work responsibilities, the information sheet from the RSA, the Health and Safety Authority. Sorry, that was from the HSA there, 2016. It's still a fantastic little document and things like that. The Health and Safety Authority have good information. The European Transport Safety Council, another good site to look at. The sobering stats and statistics are all there in the road policing unit, so if you want to learn, where the accidents are taking place, try and go there. The Road Safety Authority is good on, what the rules of the road are out there. There's some very good links on Driving for Better Business, especially for companies and fleets and things like that. There's good toolbox talks. There's other links in Driving for Better Business with the Australian website as well. They've got some very good toolboxes, and okay, some of the ads can be a bit crude, if you know what I mean. You've got don't uck with a truck. Now they will be bigger trucks out in Australia, things like that, but it gets the message, you keep well out of their blind spots. But it's understanding how those vehicles work and operate and where their blind spots. If you're looking at the European vehicles that are going to the continent, if you're going to France, you've got angles mort, which are identifying, where the blind spots are. But what does angles mort mean? Well, these are going to be the squash zones. These are the fatal areas, to stay out. And if you can't see the driver, then the driver can't see you, which is one of the areas that we need to look at. Euro NCAP is coming a long way, to looking at the vehicles and why they're there, why you've got safety features in them. So I'd always recommend, if you're getting a new vehicle or any vehicle, look back at the historic scoring of those vehicles and what were they, and why does a new vehicle have a better rating than others. Those are the links that I have in the website. The HSA, that they're just kind of a force collision management toolkit for anybody who wants to learn how to do a post-accident investigation. So reporting the incident to the claims and to the insurance company, that's great. They'll identify, are they liable or are they not, and then hand over the money. But you need to learn from the incident, I think, which is the important part. So that's really where the post collision, what's the true cause of this incident. Met air and weather warnings. Well, that's a good one to have on your phone. You'll know what your journey going to be like. Is there going to be bad weather? With Google Maps and things like that, you can clearly see if there's collisions ahead, if the traffic is heavy. But before you go, you can anticipate, well, what's the weather ahead of you, and things like that. Remember, you've got the power to influence driver behavior. We all have that power. We've got these superpowers. So we've got the ability to change on whether people wear seatbelts, how they speed. Are you fatigued? So having good sleep hygiene is important. Drinking drugs and driver distractions. These are all ways that we can change driver behavior. And guys, that's my twopence worth. If you have any questions, you can contact me, fabian.murphy@aviva.com, or I'm sure David would be able to answer some questions.
That's brilliant. Thank you very much. And wow, there's a lot of information there. And some of those statistics are quite can be quite scary. So I've taken away a few notes, made a few notes of myself. And so particularly around the five, the fatal five. So that was the speeding and the seatbelt use, and 18% of fatalities in 2022. I mean, that's this day and age. I mean, that's quite significant. Fatigue. I love the stop, sit, sleep. That's really memorable. That is. And that's something that we can easily apply. Oh, absolutely. So you got the neck pillows there as well. So no, and the drink and drug driving, I mean, 39%, again, that's still, for this day and age, still incredibly high. And then there's the distraction as well. And it's amazing how we still see people actually holding mobile phones in their hands these days whilst driving. So we know that does happen. So lots of insights there, really, really helpful. We've actually got a couple of questions here in the Q&A. So I'm just going to go through those and read those out. And speaking of eyesight, better get my glasses on as well. So as a motorcyclist, I believe that one way to change car driver behavior is to take them out on a motorbike and show them the vulnerability of motorcyclists. During the winter, there are less bikers on the road. So when the weather gets better and more bikes are on the road, more incidents happen as car drivers are not looking out for bikes. What increasing campaigns could be beneficial at this time of year? Over to you, Fabian.
Yeah. That's so, as to change driver behavior as an employer, or if you're engaging with staff, issuing toolboxes which are great. So you should be looking at the campaigns. The weather is bad. You're getting people to prepare for their winter driving and things like that, and your visibility and your stopping distances, going out checking your tires and all that sort of thing. So don't just look at the summer periods and things like that. You have to look at as the seasons change. Um, in Ireland, we've got the schools are out now for the summer, you know, and so you still have secondary schools, you'll have kids, you'll have more kids on estates, especially around holidays, attractive sites and things like that. So you're going to have an awful lot more kids out there. I'm focusing a lot on kids with bikes as well, you know. So then as the summer progresses, you've got kids back to school, and then you've got the lighting up times and things like that. So you're looking at reflectors, and now people don't realize, when you're around the site, daytime driving lights, having your lights on a bike, a motorbike, and things like that. It's all about getting attraction so that people can spot you early. So it's amazing how much of our general close, is dark. So it's black or it's blue or it's green or something like that. Very hard to pick up. They're not conspicuous enough, things like that. So you'd see cyclists wearing day glow yellows and things like that. Maybe more things like that to be spotting on. But have your light on, a bit more flashing and things like that. So that you'll see these on bikes now that they've got all different pulses and things like that. That will help. It's not just a steady on light and things like that. If you're in a built-up area, if you're coming onto a site, I would be recommending windows down, first gear crawling, lights on. Oh, radio off. So it doesn't matter what the conditions are on, things like that. Windows down, you'll have a greater audible view of what's around the corner and things like that. And you keep your lights on, daytime running lights, and that way then you're not going to get surprised by the winter. Campaigns. It's really about campaigning throughout the year. You've different events. You could have sports. You've got a dry period during the day for maybe a couple of weeks, and then you have a rain shower, and the road is literally greasy and slippery, and it can be just as slippery after gritting the road as well with salt. That'll leave a residue that'll be just as slippery as nearly ice. So you've got all these challenges and things like that. I think it's for drivers or for changing driver behavior, if you've got some sort of supporting network within the company, if you've got that function within the company to prompt people on safety, do campaigns and things like that. But there's some very good ones in Australia on driver awareness and things like that.
Okay.
Put up the
No,
posters. Put up the
brilliant.
posters that are there. There's lots of.
That's fantastic. No, thank you. Thanks very much, Fabian. And then the second question. So we've got last one here. So there was a recent documentary in England covering a number of deaths relating to poor eyesight and drivers not being able to read number plates at a distance required by the DVLA. So what are your thoughts on self-declaration on eyesight and fitness to work for professional drivers? So should employers undertake number plate reading checks as part of regular health surveillance? And should opticians report people to DVLA or equivalent rather than relying on drivers' honesty? So what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so best practice would state that really, if you should do a driver declaration once a year. Now it's very easy for drivers to not be aware that their vision is changing, because it changes. It might take 10 years for their vision to deteriorate and things like that. So they see very gradual changes, and they're not aware of how good their vision could have been. So as a manager, you should really set up a number plate. Can you read the number plate at 20 meters? If you can, well, that seems to be the basic minimum. For commercial vehicles, of course, in Ireland, your licenses, you only get a 5-year license, so you have to do a medical, things like that. But the RSA recommend a visual eyesight test every 2 years. So And that's good for just looking at computers, not to mind anything else. It's good practice. You've got an awful lot of people becoming so as they're getting older, their night vision would change and they don't feel comfortable driving at night. So remember what I said earlier on about enjoy driving. If you don't enjoy driving, you leave it being the safer driver, things like that. You don't necessarily have to be a commercial person or something like that. So look at the older people. But if you've been instructed by your doctor or optician that you're not suitable for driving, if you go driving, you're illegal. It's illegal. Once you become aware, so the RSA or the NDLS don't need to be informed yet. Once you've been informed that you've got poor eyesight, you're now illegal. Things like that. There's a health and safety advice. I think it's issued. It's updated about every 2 years. So it's medical fitness to drive guidance. It's on the RSA and it is also on the NDLS, the National Driver's License Service, things like that, which is the medical fitness to drive guidance on vision and things like that, which is different from the UK 20 meters one. But what they're recommending is the optician is the only way to go, things like that.
Oh, that's brilliant. No, thank you very much. So that was the last question. We don't have any more. So thanks everybody for joining us and taking your time out. So recording of this will be going up onto the hub early next week. If you do have any further questions, please drop them in our chat on the IIRSM Ireland branch LinkedIn company page, and somebody there will pick it up. And Fabian is one of our newest members of the committee, so we will certainly pass that on to Fabian as well. So look, thank you everybody, and we look forward to seeing you all soon. You take care, and bye for now.
Bye bye.